Do you really believe you could never kill someone? Most people do. But the truth is, no one is born a killer. Killers aren't born. They are made in a single moment. One misunderstanding, years of anger, one wrong decision, and everything changes. And the scariest part? Just 5 seconds before, that person was normal, just like you. Innocent, harmless, someone who had never taken a life. You might think, that could never be me. But almost every killer once believed the same thing. So the question is, could you become one? Do you think of yourself as a good person? Most of us do. We believe, I would never kill someone. I would never do something truly evil. But there's a problem with that belief. Being good is not who you are. It's the result of the situation you're in. There was an experiment conducted by Stanley Milgram. Ordinary people were brought into a lab and told to administer electric shocks to another person in the next room. At first, they hesitated. They questioned it. They felt uncomfortable. But then, they heard phrases like, "You must continue." This is part of the experiment. We take full responsibility. And something changed. 65% of them continued all the way. They believed they were causing real pain, possibly even death. So why did they do it? Were they evil? No. They were just ordinary people. Humans tend to switch off their morality under 3 conditions. 1. Authority. When someone in power gives an order, we stop questioning and start obeying. 2. Diffusion of responsibility. It's not me. They told me to do it. Guilt becomes easier to ignore. 3. Social environment. If others are doing it, you are far more likely to do it too. And that's the uncomfortable truth. You are not as fixed as you think. You are as stable as your circumstances. Anger and loss of impulse control is one of the most dangerous and most real human mechanisms. Most killings are not planned. They happen in a single moment. When a person experiences intense anger, the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala, activates almost instantly. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and control, shuts down. Psychologists call this amygdala hijack. In that moment, you lose your ability to think. You lose your ability to judge. You don't decide. You react. And this process is fast. It can happen in just a few seconds, because the human brain only operates in 2 modes. Slow, logical thinking. Fast, survival-based reaction. When anger spikes, your brain interprets it as danger. And once that happens, thinking turns off. Reaction takes over. When impulse control is lost, you don't think about consequences. You don't feel whether it's right or wrong. You lose control over yourself completely. And in a single second, you can create consequences that last a lifetime. So what triggers this? Impulse loss is most common during romantic conflict, betrayal, jealousy, breakups, alcohol or drug use, long-term accumulated stress, humiliation, or ego damage. But among all of these, there is one factor that directly shuts down control: alcohol. Alcohol weakens the prefrontal cortex, reduces self-control, and increases aggression. That's why many sudden acts of violence happen under the influence. Some people are also more vulnerable than others. They may be naturally impulsive, quick to anger, or shaped by early life trauma. Many have histories of abuse or show antisocial traits. For them, the threshold to lose control is much lower. And then comes the most disturbing part. After the act, Logic returns. Within moments, the same person begins to think, "What have I done?" Guilt, shock, fear, all at once. But by then, it's already too late. One of the most dangerous forms of violence begins with a simple shift in perception. Not anger, not impulse, but something colder. Dehumanization. This is when you stop seeing the other person as human and start seeing them as an enemy, an object, a threat, or something less than human. An ordinary person, under normal conditions, feels empathy when someone is hurt, feels discomfort when others suffer. But once dehumanization takes hold, that empathy disappears. This process usually unfolds in 3 stages. 1. Labeling they are animals. They are dangerous. They are not like us. 2. Division. We are right. They are wrong and a threat. 3. Justification. They must be eliminated. This is necessary. At that point, the person committing violence does not feel like they're doing something wrong. They believe they are doing something right. But dehumanization becomes far more dangerous in groups, because when people with the same beliefs gather, they reinforce each other. Doubts disappear, responsibility spreads, and ordinary individuals become part of collective violence. This is why dehumanization is so common in war, ideological conflict, ethnic violence. But today, it can begin in much smaller ways. Online harassment, group shaming, degrading others. Some researchers believe this is the earliest stage of dehumanization. And the most uncomfortable truth is this: dehumanization is easy, because every human brain is wired to detect the enemy. Originally, this helped us survive. But in the modern world, when that mechanism is misused, it creates atrocities. More than anything we've discussed so far, the most common trigger is fear. Fear, combined with the instinct to survive, is stronger than morality. Since the beginning of Homo sapiens, fear and survival have been our brain's original programming. You can think of the human brain as having 2 layers. The upper layer, logic and morality. The lower layer, survival instinct. And when fear takes over, the lower layer seizes control. In that moment, the brain immediately processes 2 options: run or fight. But if the brain decides that escape is not possible, it switches into something else: elimination mode. And the logic becomes simple: if they don't die, I will. That's when a person becomes capable of killing another human being. But here's the most important part. The threat doesn't have to be real. If someone believes they are in danger, or even just feels threatened, the brain does not distinguish between real and imagined danger. It reacts the same way. Sometimes, a look, a word, a gesture can be misinterpreted as a threat, especially when a person is under intense stress or under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and in that moment, fear becomes action. Most people believe that killers are mentally unstable, but the truth is far more uncomfortable. Most killers are psychologically normal. Studies show that the majority of people who commit murder do not have a diagnosed severe mental illness. Only a small percentage are affected by conditions such as psychosis, severe depression, or psychopathy, which means mental illness alone does not explain violence. However, among that smaller group, one pattern appears more often: psychopathy. People with psychopathic traits often lack empathy, feel little to no guilt, see others as tools. For them, there are fewer psychological barriers to violence, psychosis. In cases of psychosis, people may hear voices or believe someone is trying to harm them. Reality becomes distorted, and when a person can no longer distinguish between what is real and what is not, they may act on those beliefs. Severe depression. A much smaller group includes individuals with severe depression. In some cases, before taking their own life, they may feel compelled to take others with them. But here's what most people misunderstand. The vast majority of people with mental illness are not dangerous. In fact, they are more likely to be victims than perpetrators. So the real danger is not simply mental illness. It is a combination of psychological vulnerability, environment, and the right or wrong conditions. Now we arrive at the darkest part of the human mind, the moment when killing feels right. After an act of violence, some people regain their sense of reality. They feel shock, regret, guilt. But others go in the opposite direction. They don't come back. They shut their morality down and begin to justify what they've done. This usually happens for 3 reasons. 1. Justice. They deserved it. I did the right thing. Revenge starts to feel like justice. 2. Survival. If I hadn't killed, I would have died. In war, in fear, in desperation, people replace fear with justification. 3. Normalization. This is normal. Others are doing the same. When responsibility is shared, guilt fades away. And when any of these combine with something even more dangerous, dehumanization, that's when everything changes. Because now, the victim is no longer human. The act feels justified, and all moral restraints disappear. At that point, violence becomes effortless. So now we understand. Anger, dehumanization, fear, mental factors, justification. None of these act alone. But when 2 or more of them collide in a single moment, that's when the outcome becomes deadly. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You feel anger. You feel fear. You can blame others, which means the same mechanisms exist inside you. The reason you are not a killer is not because you are different. It's because you have never been in the exact conditions that turn someone into one. Human beings are capable of deep compassion, but at the same time, we are capable of extreme cruelty. And which side emerges is decided by the mechanisms in your mind and the situation around you. So in the end, there is only one question. Now that you understand why people kill, can you still say, with certainty, that you would never do the same?